There is a silence in the deep void of space that we mistake for peace. We look up at the night sky, at the tapestry of stars burning with steady, ancient light, and we feel safe. We feel anchored. We believe that if a threat were to come for us, if a destroyer were to approach our fragile blue marble, we would see it coming. We would have time to prepare, to panic, to say our goodbyes. But the universe is not peaceful, and it is certainly not fair. There are ghosts in the dark, unwanted guests that move with the speed of a photon, silent assassins that defy the very laws of intuition. Imagine, for a moment, a bullet. Not a bullet made of lead or steel, but a bullet made of pure, condensed gravity. A puncture wound in the fabric of reality itself. It is traveling at the speed of light, 300,000 kilometers per second, tearing through the vacuum, and it is aimed directly at the heart of our world. This is not a science fiction fantasy. This is the physics of the impossible made manifest. We are about to send a black hole through the Earth. But not the monsters you are used to seeing in movies, the gargantuan voids that swallow suns. No, we are starting with something far more insidious, the tiniest black hole in the universe. To understand the scale of this threat, we must first dismantle your understanding of size. In our human experience, danger is usually large. A hurricane, an asteroid, a mountain collapsing. But in the realm of the cosmos, size is a deception. Mass is the only truth. Most black holes we know of are the corpses of giants. They are called stellar mass black holes, born in the violent, agonizing death throes of stars at least 8 times heavier than our Sun. When such a star runs out of fuel, it can no longer support its own weight, and it collapses inward, crushing itself into a point of infinite density. We know they are out there. The closest one to us, a sleeper agent known as Gaia BH1, sits just over 1,500 light-years away. It is 10 times as massive as our Sun, yet its event horizon, the point of no return, is only 37 miles wide. A city-sized destroyer sleeping in the dark. But we are not talking about Gaia today. Gaia is too big. We are talking about the things that should not exist. The things that are so small, they slip through the cracks of our telescopes and our nightmares alike. We have to go back. Back before the Earth, before the Sun, before the first galaxies spun their arms of light into the void. We must return to the very first moments after the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. In that fraction of a second, the universe was a hot, dense, chaotic soup of energy. It was expanding violently, but it wasn't perfect. There were fluctuations. Tiny pockets of density that were squeezed so hard by the pressure of the newborn universe that they collapsed on the spot. These are the primordial black holes. Ancient relics, fossils of the creation event itself. They formed before any star had the chance to ignite. Scientists theorize that these tiny, dense pockets of gravity are still out there, wandering the cosmos like invisible mines in a vast ocean. They could be as small as a single atom, yet weigh as much as a mountain. We have never seen one. Perhaps they are too small to detect, or perhaps they have evaporated into Hawking radiation over the eons. But the math says they could be here. And if the math says they exist, then the danger is real. So, let us run a simulation. Let us invite chaos into our solar system. For our story, we will not use an atom-sized black hole. That is too subtle. We need something with weight. We will conjure a hypothetical black hole with the exact same mass as the Earth. 6 sextillion tons of rock, water, iron, and life, all crushed down into a singularity. If you were to look for it, you would miss it. An Earth-mass black hole would not be the size of a planet. It would have an event horizon just under 2 centimeters wide, 3/4 of an inch, smaller than a coin you might find in your pocket, smaller than a grape. Think about that for a second.
Look at a coin in your hand. Now imagine that tiny metal disc contains the gravitational pull of the entire world. Every mountain, every ocean, every skyscraper, every human being compressed into a space smaller than your eye. This coin-sized apocalypse is now hurtling toward us at the speed of light. It is a tiny, invisible needle threading the cosmic haystack. You would not see it coming. There would be no shadow blocking the stars, no ominous accretion disk swirling with fire. It is too small to catch the light. It is simply a point of nothingness, a blind spot in the universe. It would fly past Earth like a phantom bullet. At light speed, the entire encounter would last only 0.04 seconds. A blink of an eye, less than a heartbeat.
You might think that something passing by so quickly would have no effect, that it would be gone before physics had time to react. You would be wrong. Gravity does not wait. Gravity travels at the speed of light, just like the black hole itself. As this tiny visitor approaches, the first thing the planet would feel is a confusion of forces. Gravity usually pulls us down, toward the center of the Earth. It is the constant that keeps our atmosphere from drifting away and our feet planted on the ground. But suddenly, there is a second Earth, a second source of gravity equal in power to our own, but concentrated into a pinprick. As it swings past, it would pull on the fabric of our world with terrifying specificity. This is where the horror of tidal forces begins. Because gravity gets exponentially stronger the closer you get to the source, the side of the Earth facing the black hole would be pulled much, much harder than the side facing away. The planet would groan. The crust, that thin shell of rock we build our civilizations upon, is not designed to flex. It is brittle. As the black hole whips by, the ground beneath your feet would try to stretch toward it. It would be as if the planet itself were taking a deep, agonizing breath. Tsunamis would not just rise from the ocean, they would be ripped from the seabed. Towering walls of water triggered not by wind or tectonic shifts, but by the ocean itself trying to fall into the sky. Volcanoes that have been dormant for centuries would suddenly find their magma chambers squeezed by the flexing crust, erupting simultaneously across the globe. And then there is the orbit. We dance around the sun in a delicate balance, a waltz that has kept the Earth in the habitable zone for billions of years. We are in the Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold. But this flyby, this gravitational kick, would shatter that balance. The black hole would yank Earth out of its groove. We could be flung inward toward the searing heat of the sun, where the oceans would boil and the atmosphere would ignite. Or, perhaps more terrifyingly, we could be cast outward. We could drift toward the orbit of Mars, leaving the warmth of our star behind. The days would grow dim. The ice caps would advance, not over centuries, but over weeks. The sky would turn a permanent, bruised purple as the cold set in. But this is the best-case scenario. This is what happens if the black hole misses. This is what happens if the coin-sized destroyer merely grazes us, a cosmic warning shot across the bow. But space is vast, and the odds are low. Yet, in the infinite theater of the universe, even the impossible happens eventually. What if it didn't miss? What if that 2-centimeter nightmare didn't just fly by, but flew through? What if the needle pierced the skin of the world? That is a different kind of apocalypse. That is a violation of the planet's body, so violent, so absolute, that it defies comprehension. But we are going to comprehend it. We are going to slow down time and watch the needle thread the Earth. Because when a black hole strikes, it doesn't just break things, it changes the definition of what it means to be solid. If the flyby was a warning, the collision is an execution. Imagine the Earth not as a planet, but as a living body, and this black hole as a needle moving at the speed of light.
It does not push the atmosphere aside, it does not burn up upon entry, it simply arrives. In the fraction of a second it takes for a neuron to fire in your brain, the event is already over, but the consequences are eternal. The black hole, this 2-centimeter point of infinite crushing power, pierces the crust of our world. It enters through the Pacific, perhaps, and exits through the Atlantic. Or it slices diagonally from the Arctic to Antarctica. It creates a tunnel, a perfect, impossible tube bored straight through the mantle and the molten iron core of our home. This is not a crater, it is a wound that goes all the way through. The physics of this moment are grotesque. As the black hole travels through the solid rock and molten metal of Earth's interior, it does not merely displace matter, it consumes it. Anything that falls within that 2-centimeter event horizon is deleted from the universe, erased from existence. But the true horror lies just outside that boundary. The gravity is so intense, so localized, that the rock and iron surrounding the tunnel are not just pulled, they are spaghettified. They are stretched into long, thin strands of superheated plasma, ripped apart at the atomic level. The friction of this rapid acceleration generates heat that rivals the center of the sun. The black hole leaves behind a wake of thermal devastation, a cauterized scar through the heart of the planet that instantly begins to collapse in on itself. You, standing on the surface, would not see the black hole. You wouldn't see the sky darken.
You would simply feel the world end. The shockwave would not be a sound, it would be a seizure of the tectonic plates. When the black hole punches through the core, it sends a gravitational shudder through the entire planetary mass. Imagine a bell being struck by a sledgehammer. The Earth rings. Fault lines on the other side of the world, thousands of miles away from the entry point, would slip instantly. This is not a local earthquake. This is not the ground shaking in California or Japan. This is the crust of the entire planet, cracking everywhere, all at once. The structural integrity of the globe is compromised. Cities do not just crumble, they are swallowed as the ground liquefies beneath them. The psychological terror of this event is absolute. In a hurricane or a bombing, there is a cause and effect you can perceive. You see the clouds, you hear the whistle of the shell. But here, the destruction is silent and invisible. The sky is blue, the birds are singing, and then the ground opens up. You would never know why. You would die without ever understanding that a piece of the primordial universe had just assassinated your planet. The collapse of the tunnel through the core would create a vacuum, a suction that pulls the crust inward. The oceans would boil as the heat from the interior vents upwards through the cracks. The atmosphere would ignite. It is a sterilization event, efficient and merciless. But while the physical crust of our planet tears itself apart in this hypothetical nightmare, there is a parallel to be drawn to our reality. We live in two worlds. We stand on the physical Earth, susceptible to the forces of nature, but we also exist in a digital ether, a world of data and signals that is just as fragile and just as exposed to invisible predators. In the chaos of the modern age, while we worry about the ground beneath our feet, we often ignore the silent, invisible threats that stalk us every time we connect to the hive mind of the internet. Just as the black hole passes through the Earth unseen, there are eyes watching your digital footprint, tracking, cataloging, and selling the essence of who you are. In this digital ecosystem, when everything is free, you are not the customer, you are the product. Your habits, your location, your secrets, they are commodities sold to the highest bidder. But unlike the cosmic lottery of a black hole collision, this is a fate you can actually prevent. This brings us to the shield against the invisible, CyberGhost VPN. Think of it as a hardening of your digital event horizon. It is a virtual private network that acts as a tunnel of its own, not one of destruction, but of encryption. It wraps your internet traffic in a layer of mathematical armor, hiding it from the prying eyes of service providers, data brokers, and hackers who wait in the dark like gravitational traps. By selecting one of their thousands of servers across 100 locations, you are essentially teleporting your digital presence. You become a ghost in the machine. You are physically in New York, but your data appears to be in Tokyo, or London, or Zurich. This is not just about privacy, it is about freedom. The internet, much like the universe, is full of walls, geo-restrictions that lock you out of content based on where you happen to be standing. With CyberGhost, you dissolve those walls. You unlock the full library of human culture. Streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney+, regardless of borders. You can even manipulate the digital economy, changing your virtual location to score better deals on flights and hotels, outsmarting the algorithms that try to price gouge you. The reviews speak for themselves. 20,000 voices on Trustpilot, 38 million users worldwide. They agree that this is the best way to stay safe in a predatory digital wild. And because we live in an age of multiple devices, one subscription protects 7 of them simultaneously. Your iPhone, your laptop, your tablet, even the devices of your friends and family. It is a total defensive perimeter. And right now, you can secure this protection for a fraction of the cost. By clicking the link in the description, you unlock an 83% discount. That is $2 a month. Less than a cup of coffee for a shield that keeps the invisible wolves at bay. 4 months are thrown in for free, and with a 45-day money-back guarantee, the risk is 0. The only risk is remaining exposed. Stay private, stay secure. Do not let the invisible threats tear your digital life apart. Now, with your privacy secured and your digital signal encrypted, we must return to the real danger. We must leave the realm of data and return to the realm of crushing matter. We have survived the needle, the coin-sized assassin. But the universe is not done with us. We said that size doesn't always matter, that mass is the true king. But what happens when we scale up? What happens when the black hole is no longer a tiny, unseen point, but a gaping maw that you can see with the naked eye? We are moving from the primordial leftovers to the fresh kills. We are moving to the stellar mass black holes. Let us conjure a new nightmare, a black hole with the mass of 10 suns. This is not a pebble. This is a gravestone for a solar system. Despite weighing 10 times more than the star that gives us life, this object is terrifyingly compact. It is only about 59 kilometers wide, 37 miles. You could drive across its diameter in under an hour on a highway. It is small enough to fit inside a small state, yet it holds the gravitational authority to shred entire planets into dust. This is the paradox of the black hole. The smaller the volume, the more violent the gravity at its surface. As this 10 solar mass beast enters our domain, it does not sneak in. It announces itself. It enters through the Kuiper Belt, the frozen ring of debris at the edge of our system, and the clock starts ticking. You have 5.5 hours, that is all. 5.5 hours until total chaos. This is not a sudden impact. This is a slow-motion train wreck on a cosmic scale. The first victim is not Earth, but the giants that guard us. Astronomers would see the effects on Jupiter first. The kin of planets, the gas giant that has shielded us from asteroids for eons, would suddenly find itself outmatched. In 4 hours and 50 minutes, the black hole crosses Jupiter's orbit. It moves too fast to swallow the gas giant whole, but its gravity is a bully. It tugs at Jupiter's massive atmosphere. It distorts the planet's shape. If it passes close enough, it triggers tidal disruption, pulling great streamers of gas out into the void, painting a spiral of death in the darkness. But the black hole is hungry for something denser. It rushes inward, past the asteroid belt, past Mars. The red planet shudders in its orbit, perhaps flung out into the cold dark, or torn apart by the tidal claws of the invader. And then the sky on Earth begins to change.
Even without emitting light, the black hole makes its presence known. It bends the light of the stars behind it. You would look up and see the constellations swirling, twisting as if the sky were a painting left out in the rain. This is gravitational lensing, the warping of space-time itself. It is beautiful, hypnotic, and a sign that death is imminent.
You would feel the ground shift beneath your feet, not from an earthquake, but because the Earth is stretching. The planet is trying to fall toward the new master of gravity. The oceans would rise, not in tides, but in mountains. And then the silence would break. The real violence is about to begin. The sky is no longer a canopy of peace. It is a swirling vortex of distorted light. The constellations you learned as a child, Orion, the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia, are being twisted into unrecognizable shapes, smeared across the heavens like oil on water. This is the visual signature of doom. The stellar mass black hole, weighing as much as 10 suns, has breached the inner sanctum of our solar system. It is no longer a theoretical threat or a distant mathematical curiosity. It is here. It is a shadow measuring 37 miles wide, a sphere of absolute nothingness that screams its presence through the language of gravity. We are now in the final hours. The clock that started ticking when the beast entered the Kuiper Belt is running out. Mars has likely been dealt with, either flung into the freezing abyss of interstellar space or shredded into a ring of red dust. Now, the predator turns its gaze toward the blue marble. At this distance, the gravitational influence of the black hole begins to rival that of the sun. But unlike the sun, which warms us and holds us in a gentle life-sustaining embrace, this object offers only cold, mechanical violence. It does not want to nurture, it wants to tear. On the surface of Earth, the sensation is one of profound wrongness. You would feel lighter at times, heavier at others, as the competing gravities of the Earth, the Sun, and the approaching black hole wage a war for your mass. The ground beneath your feet is no longer solid, it is groaning. Deep within the crust, the tectonic plates are locked in a panic. They are being pulled apart and slammed together simultaneously. The continents are creaking. The sound would be deafening, a low-frequency hum that vibrates in your chest, the sound of the planet itself screaming under the strain. And then the water responds. The oceans are the most malleable part of our world, and they are the first to surrender to the new gravity. Tides usually rise and fall by a few feet, guided by the gentle tug of the moon. But this is not the moon. This is a monster 10 million times more massive. The tides do not just rise, they erupt. Walls of water, miles high, would sweep across the coastlines, swallowing entire nations in minutes. This is not a flood, it is a planetary resurfacing. The water is being pulled off the surface, drawn upward in great, defying columns toward the invisible point in the sky. But the horror is not just in the water, it is in the fire. The Earth's core is molten iron, and it too feels the pull. The stress on the planet's interior generates friction, heat, and pressure. Every volcano on Earth, from the Ring of Fire to the dormant peaks of Europe, would detonate at once. The sky would turn black with ash, blotting out the twisted stars. We would be trapped in a choking twilight, suspended between the drowning oceans and the burning mountains. And yet, in this scenario, the black hole is just passing by. It is a flyby, a drive-by shooting on a cosmic scale. It is not hitting us directly, not yet. It is merely grazing our neighborhood. But even a graze from a tiger is fatal to a mouse. As the black hole swings past, its gravity would act like a giant hand, grabbing the Earth and yanking it out of its orbit. We would be stripped from our path around the sun. The delicate, circular dance that has kept life safe for 4 billion years would be broken in an instant.
We might be flung outward, into the dark. As we drift away from the sun, the temperatures would plummet. The oceans, those that haven't boiled away or been pulled into space, would freeze into solid blocks of ice. The atmosphere would condense and fall as snow, nitrogen and oxygen turning into white powder. We would become a rogue planet, a frozen tomb drifting endlessly through the void. Or, perhaps worse, we could be flung inward. We could be sent spiraling into the sun, destined to be vaporized in the stellar furnace. During this violent passage, we would almost certainly lose our oldest companion, the moon. The moon is held to us by a relatively weak gravitational bond. In the face of a 10 solar mass black hole, that bond is nothing. The moon would be ripped away, stolen from our sky. We would watch it recede, a pale, frightened ghost, perhaps destined to be swallowed by the black hole itself or cast out into the loneliness of the galaxy. The loss would be symbolic of our ultimate orphanhood. We would be alone, broken, and dying. But the Earth, surprisingly, might survive as a rock.
It would be stretched, cracked, sterilized, and flung into a new, hostile orbit. But it would still be a sphere. It would not be spaghettified. It would not be consumed. It would simply be a ruin, a graveyard of civilizations, a testament to the fact that in space there is no such thing as safety, only luck, and our luck would have just run out. However, the universe is a cruel storyteller. It always asks, what if it was worse? What if this object, traveling at the speed of light, wasn't just passing by? What if it had our name on it? What if the trajectory was not a graze, but a bullseye? We must now confront the ultimate collision, a direct impact, a head-on crash between the Earth and a bullet weighing as much as 10 suns. This is where the human mind fails to comprehend the energy involved. We are used to car crashes. We are used to bomb blasts. We can even imagine asteroid impacts. But a black hole collision is different. It is not an impact of matter against matter. It is an impact of matter against math, against a singularity. You wouldn't stand a chance of surviving to see it. You wouldn't even have time to realize you were dead. The black hole is moving at 300,000 kilometers per second. One moment, the sky is distorted. The next, the planet is gone. But let us slow it down. Let us use the power of our imagination to dissect the millisecond of our destruction. In an instant, the black hole rips through the planet like a bullet through a cloud of smoke. But this bullet is heavy, impossibly heavy. As it touches the upper atmosphere, it doesn't push the air aside, it sucks it in. The atmosphere collapses into the event horizon in a microsecond, glowing with the brilliance of 1,000 suns as the gases are superheated before disappearing forever. Then it hits the crust. The rock does not crack, it does not shatter, it flows. Under the influence of such extreme gravity, solid granite behaves like water. The black hole punches a hole straight through the mantle, the core, and out the other side. But unlike the tiny coin-sized black hole from before, this one is 37 miles wide. It is wider than the channel it creates. It consumes a massive cylinder of the Earth instantly. But the real destruction happens to the rest of the planet. The gravity of the black hole is so intense that as it passes through the center of the Earth, it pulls everything else inward. The crust, the oceans, the mountains, they are all yanked toward the center of the tunnel. The entire planet implodes. It is the opposite of an explosion. The Earth collapses in on itself, rushing to meet the destroyer that is piercing its heart. And then, just 0.04 seconds later, the black hole exits the other side. It bursts out of the crust, trailing a stream of superheated debris, pieces of our core that have been ripped out and accelerated to near light speed. The shockwave of its exit would shatter whatever structure remained. The planet would be turned inside out. It would be a cloud of expanding plasma, a smear of atoms that used to be a world. The black hole? It wouldn't even slow down. It would continue on its journey through the cosmos, indifferent to the genocide it just committed. It would carry with it a tiny bit of added mass, the mass of the Earth it just consumed. But to a black hole of that size, we are nothing, a rounding error, a speck of dust on the windshield of a freight train. The oceans would boil, not from heat, but from the sheer energy of the collapse. The atmosphere would ignite, turning the space around the Earth into a brief, brilliant nebula. Entire continents would not just crack, they would vaporize. There would be no ruins left to drift in space. There would be no rogue planet. There would only be a memory, a ghost of a world that once hosted life, now scattered as stardust across the solar system. This is the power of the stellar mass black hole. It is a reaper. It does not bargain. It does not pause. It simply is. And in its presence, we are reminded of our fragility. We build our cities, we fight our wars, we worry about our digital privacy and our bank accounts, all while living on a tiny raft in a violent ocean. And there are sharks in the water, big ones. But believe it or not, this is still small scale. We are still playing in the shallow end of the black hole pool. There are things out there that make a 10 solar mass black hole look like a grain of sand. There are monsters that do not just eat planets, they eat stars. They eat clusters. They eat light itself in gulps the size of solar systems. We are about to leave the realm of the stellar and enter the realm of the intermediate, the missing link, the rare, elusive beasts that bridge the gap between the dead stars and the galactic giants. We are moving up the food chain, and the hunger only grows. We have witnessed the coin-sized assassin and the stellar mass executioner. We have seen the Earth punctured like a balloon and shredded like paper. But the universe is a place of escalation. Just when you think you understand the scale of destruction, the cosmos reveals a new layer of monstrosity. We are now leaving the realm of the common black holes, the ones born from the deaths of single stars. We are entering the domain of the rare, the elusive, and the terrifyingly massive. We are entering the domain of the intermediate mass black hole. These are the cryptids of astrophysics. We know they should exist, the missing link between the stellar corpses and the supermassive giants that anchor galaxies. But they are incredibly hard to find. They are the ghosts in the machine. Scientists believe they form in the dense clusters of stars, where stellar mass black holes collide and merge, cannibalizing each other to grow larger, heavier, and hungrier. They weigh between a few hundred and a few 100,000 times the mass of our Sun. They are not just dead stars. They are graveyards of dead stars, fused into a single entity of crushing power. Let us summon one. Let us bring a black hole 1,000 times more massive than our Sun into our solar system. This is no longer a 37-mile-wide object. This beast packs all that mass, 1,000 suns, into a sphere about half the size of Earth. Imagine a black planet, a sphere of absolute darkness, sitting in space, radiating nothing but cold gravity. It is the size of Mars, but it weighs as much as 1,000 solar systems. If this thing entered our neighborhood, it would not be a stealth attack. It would be a demolition. A black hole of this mass is a gravitational wrecking ball. It wouldn't just disturb the orbits of planets, it would dominate them. As it rampaged through the solar system, it would act as a second sun, a dark twin, but one with no warmth to give. It would seize control. As it approaches Earth, the scenario shifts from a physical tearing to a gravitational consumption. Just like the others, it would trigger the volcanoes, the earthquakes, the tsunamis. But the scale is different. The pull is so strong that it wouldn't just lift the tides, it would lift the crust. It would peel the surface of the Earth like the skin of an orange. Great chunks of our planet, mountains, islands, entire tectonic plates would be ripped from the bedrock and levitated into the sky, drawn toward the dark sphere looming above. Imagine looking up. The sky is not just distorted, it is dominated by a black circle that swallows the stars, and around it a halo of light, the accretion disk. As the black hole feeds on the debris of our solar system, asteroids, comets, perhaps the shattered remains of Mars, it spins that matter into a glowing ring of superheated plasma. It would be beautiful, a terrible, glowing eye staring down at us. But the radiation from that disk would cook the atmosphere before the gravity even finished the job. X-rays and gamma rays would scour the surface of the Earth, stripping away the ozone layer, boiling the oceans, and sterilizing the land. Then the pass occurs. If it is just a flyby, the Earth is left a ruin, a tilted, broken world with an unstable orbit spinning wildly in the dark. The civilization we built over thousands of years would be gone, collapsed in slow motion under the weight of the sky falling down. Survivors, if any, would be clinging to a rock that is drifting into the deep freeze, the sun a distant, fading memory. But we are here for the collision. We are here to see what happens when the unstoppable force meets the movable object. What happens if this intermediate mass black hole, this half-Earth-sized sphere of 1,000 suns, is on a direct course through our planet? It wouldn't collide like a rock. It wouldn't crash. It would replace. Because the black hole is roughly the size of a planet itself, this isn't a needle piercing a ball. This is a phantom walking through a wall. The black hole would occupy the space where Earth used to be. It happens in a fraction of a second. As the black hole makes contact, the Earth starts to collapse inward before the surface even touches the event horizon. This is the terrifying power of the Roche limit. The gravity is so strong that the structural integrity of the rock fails. The planet doesn't wait to be hit. It crumbles into the void. Rocks would lift, the ground would curve upward, and the horizon would bend into a bowl shape. You would see the curvature of the Earth inverted, folding up to meet the black hole. And here we encounter a new horror: time dilation. Near an event horizon, gravity is so intense that it warps the flow of time itself. To an observer far away, safely watching from a spaceship near Pluto, the Earth would appear to slow down as it fell into the black hole. The destruction would look like it was frozen in time, a painting of the apocalypse hanging in the gallery of space. But for you, on the surface, time would racing, or stopping. The perception of reality would shatter. Then comes the breach. The black hole swallows the planet. It doesn't chew, it engulfs. Earth would be gone in an instant. Cities wouldn't have time to burn. They wouldn't have time to crumble. They would just stretch and vanish. Spaghettification on a planetary scale. The atoms that make up your body, the steel of the skyscrapers, the water of the oceans, all of it would be drawn into long, thin strings of subatomic particles, spiraling into the singularity. The black hole would leave a collapsing molten tunnel through the space where Earth was, but only for a microsecond. Because the black hole is so large, it consumes the entire volume of the planet almost instantly. With the planet's core gone, the rest of the Earth would rush in to fill the void, only to find the void is hungry. The planet would implode. It would turn inside out, collapsing into a point of infinite density. And just like that, silence. The black hole would exit the area where Earth once stood, moving on its trajectory at light speed. It would leave nothing behind. No debris field, no dust, no ruins. The Earth would simply be added to the mass of the black hole. We would become part of the monster. Our history, our art, our wars, our love, all of it compressed into a mathematical point, hidden forever behind the event horizon.
This is the nature of the intermediate black hole. It is efficient. It is clean. It leaves no evidence. It is a cosmic eraser. But we are not done. The universe has one final card to play. We have seen the small, the medium, and the large. But there is a category beyond large. There is a category called stupendously large. We are talking about the monsters that live in the hearts of galaxies, the anchors of the cosmos, the supermassive black holes. These are the gods of gravity. They do not weigh 10 suns or 1,000 suns. They weigh millions, billions of suns. They are the reason galaxies exist. They hold the stars in their orbits, spinning them like toys. And among them there is a king, a beast so large it defies the human capacity for visualization. Meet Phoenix A.
This is not just a black hole. This is an abyss. It is the largest black hole ever discovered. It has a mass of 100 billion suns. Let that number sink in. 100 billion stars, all crushed into a single dark entity. Its event horizon stretches for 590 billion kilometers. To picture this sheer size, imagine the distance from the Sun to Pluto. Now multiply that by 100. That is the width of this thing. Phoenix A is not a planet eater. It is a solar system eater. It is a galaxy eater. If you placed it in the center of our solar system, it wouldn't just swallow the Earth. It would swallow the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the Kuiper Belt, and it would still have room for dessert. The event horizon is so vast that you could fit the entire solar system inside it dozens of times over. This is the ultimate destroyer, the god of nothingness. And we are going to invite it for a visit. We are going to see what happens when the most massive object in the universe meets the most fragile. At first, without warning, strange distortions would appear in the sky. Not just the twisting of stars, but the warping of the entire galaxy. That is gravitational lensing from the most massive object in the observable universe. Phoenix A's titanic gravity would be warping the fabric of space-time light years ahead of its actual position. Even before this monstrosity passed through the Kuiper Belt, every planet in the neighborhood would feel its galactic presence. Neptune and Uranus, the ice giants at the edge of our system, would start to drift. They wouldn't just be tugged, they would be derailed. Their orbits would dissolve. A few hours later, the inner planets would get massively disturbed. Earth's path around the Sun, that perfect ellipse, would begin to deform. It would stretch into an oval, then a line. We are being pulled, not by a star, but by the dark heart of the universe itself. By the time you understood what was happening, the flyby would be imminent. Phoenix A would be approaching Earth at the speed of light. But because it is so huge, it would look like a wall of darkness consuming the sky. It wouldn't be a dot, it wouldn't be a circle. It would be the horizon, a black curtain being drawn across the stage of existence. The oceans facing the black hole would bulge upward, drawn by its monstrous gravity. Even though the beast would still be unbelievably far out, our tides would grow beyond anything in recorded history. They would flood everything. The water would not stop rising. It would cover the mountains. As Phoenix A pulled on our planet, the atmosphere wouldn't be able to hold on. It would be stripped away. Supersonic winds would tear across every continent. The air you breathe would be sucked into space, joining the accretion disk of the giant. Above you, satellites and debris would light up the sky, dragged from orbit like falling stars, burning up as they fell toward the void. Even the International Space Station, our outpost in the heavens, would plunge into a death spiral it was never built to survive. At its closest pass, Phoenix A would tear past Earth at the speed of light. For a few seconds, its gravity would overpower the Sun. The Sun, our faithful star, would lose its grip on us. Earth's orbit would shatter. We would be flung out into space.
Here on Earth, it would feel as if gravity disappeared for a moment. Everything would lift. People, cars, buildings, mountains, everything would float, suspended in a terrifying weightlessness. And then, when it was gone, everything would be caught in a sudden freefall. The planet would not just crack, it would liquefy. The crust couldn't handle the strain. The Earth would erupt in earthquakes and volcanoes, rupturing everywhere. And then, after just 0.04 seconds, just as quickly as it came, Phoenix A would race onward. In a flash, this immense black disk would start disappearing from view, leaving a distorted star field to gradually return to normal. But the havoc would remain. The solar system would be gone. The sun would be ejected, a lonely star wandering the void. The planets would be scattered like marbles. And Earth? Earth would be a rogue planet. A broken, freezing, dying rock, drifting through space, not bound to any star. In this brief, catastrophic encounter, the human toll would be incalculable. Our entire civilization would be left to die. Most coastal cities would be underwater ruins. Inland areas would deal with earthquakes, fires, and storms. It would be the end of the world for you. Even if, by some miracle, pockets of humanity survived the 40 milliseconds of chaos, they'd face an existential challenge adapting to a planet that's drifting toward deep freeze in outer space. So yeah, black holes suck. They destroy everything they touch.
But this is the story of the universe. It is violent, it is uncaring, and it is beautiful in its terror. We are lucky to be here, huddled around our warm little star, safe from the monsters in the dark. For now. Wait, I must correct the flow. I have already covered the intermediate mass black hole and Phoenix A in Part 4. The previous part was extremely long and covered themes 4, 5, and 6 effectively in one go due to the narrative momentum. However, to adhere to the structure and deepen the philosophy as requested, I will now focus on Part 5, the intermediate void, time dilation and the collapse of reality, expanding specifically on the experience of the intermediate black hole, which was rushed in the previous output. And then Part 6 will be dedicated entirely to the cosmic horror of Phoenix A, which deserves its own dedicated segment for maximum impact. Let's rewind slightly to give the intermediate mass black hole the philosophical depth it deserves before the finale. We must pause. We must rewind the simulation. In our rush to reach the giants, we glossed over a moment of profound metaphysical terror. We spoke of the intermediate mass black hole, the 1,000-sun beast, as a mere physical destroyer. But to treat it only as a wrecking ball is to ignore the most haunting aspect of general relativity. We need to talk about time. We need to talk about the collapse of reality itself. When a black hole of this magnitude, half the size of Earth, yet weighing 1,000 solar systems, approaches, it brings with it a distortion field that bends more than just light. It bends the now. We live our lives in a linear flow. Seconds tick into minutes, minutes into hours. We trust this flow. It is the metronome of our existence. But gravity is the enemy of the clock. As this dark sphere descends upon us, replacing the space where our planet hangs, it introduces a phenomenon known as gravitational time dilation. Imagine you are standing on the surface of the Earth as the shadow falls. To an observer watching from the safety of Mars, the events on Earth would appear to unfold in a bizarre, dreamlike slow motion. As the black hole's event horizon draws near, the light struggling to escape the Earth's surface would lose energy, shifting toward the red end of the spectrum. The entire planet would dim, fading into a deep, bloody crimson. But the movement would stagnate. The crumbling of buildings, the rising of the tides, the screams of the populace, To the Martian observer, these things would seem to freeze. It would look as if the Earth were being preserved in amber at the moment of its death. The image of our destruction would linger there, imprinted on the edge of the void, fading slowly over eternity, but never truly disappearing. We would become a ghost image, a permanent scar in the sky. But for you, for the victim on the surface, the experience is inverted. As you fall closer to the event horizon, looking out into the universe, time would accelerate. You would see the cosmos aging rapidly. The stars would streak across the sky like fireflies, living and dying in seconds. You would watch the future of the universe unfold in a strobe-light flicker before the darkness took you. This is the true horror of the intermediate black hole. It is not just death, it is the separation from the timeline of the universe. You are being exiled from history. And then, the breach. The physical collision we described earlier, the Earth collapsing, the tunnel forming, happens in a realm where physics as we know it breaks down. Inside the event horizon, space and time swap roles. Space becomes a unidirectional flow. You can only move forward, toward the singularity. Time becomes a spatial dimension. You can move around in it, but you can never go back. When the Earth is swallowed by this intermediate monster, it enters a reality where geometry itself is hostile. The collapse of the planet inside the black hole is a silent geometric tragedy. The rock, the water, the air, it doesn't just crush, it ceases to be matter. It becomes information. There is a theory in physics called the holographic principle, which suggests that the information of everything that falls into a black hole is preserved on its surface, on the event horizon. In this scenario, as Earth is consumed, every memory, every book, every strand of DNA, every digital byte of our internet history is plastered onto the surface of the black sphere. We become a two-dimensional coating on the destroyer. We are flattened into data. Our civilization becomes a tattoo on the skin of the beast. This intermediate black hole, this rare and elusive predator, leaves behind nothing but a silent, spinning sphere. It has fed, it has grown slightly larger, but the space where Earth used to be is now just empty. The solar system continues. Mars orbits, Jupiter spins, the sun burns. But the third rock is gone. The silence left in its wake is deafening. It is a void in the harmony of the spheres, a missing note in the song of the system. This scale of destruction is intimate. It is personal. It is the death of our world. But the universe is not intimate. The universe is vast, cold, and indifferent, and it holds monsters that make this intermediate black hole look like a speck of dust. We are now ready. We have steeled our minds. We have witnessed the death of time. Now we must witness the death of scale. We must turn our eyes to the darkness beyond the darkness, to the thing that sits on the throne of gravity. We are going to summon the king. We are going to summon Phoenix A. This is not a black hole you stumble upon. This is a black hole that defines the architecture of the cosmos. It resides in the cluster Abell 85, a beast of such gargantuan proportions that the human mind recoils from the numbers. 100 billion solar masses. Let us try to visualize this again, because the previous attempt was merely a sketch. Imagine the sun. Now imagine a black hole that is not 10 times, not 1,000 times, but 100 billion times heavier. Its event horizon is not measured in kilometers. It is measured in light days. It stretches for 590 billion kilometers. To put that in perspective, the Voyager 1 probe, the furthest human-made object, has been traveling for nearly 50 years and is only about 24 billion kilometers away. It would take Voyager another millennium just to cross the diameter of this black hole. It is 100 times wider than the distance from the Sun to Pluto.
It is a dark abyss large enough to swallow entire solar systems without even burping. If Phoenix A were to replace our sun, we wouldn't just be inside it. The entire solar system would be lost in its throat. We would be deep, deep inside the belly of the beast, nowhere near the exit. But we are not replacing the sun. We are sending it on a flyby. We are sending the god of nothingness to swing past our tiny, fragile home. The approach of Phoenix A is an event of cosmic horror. It begins long before the object arrives. It begins with the distortion of the galaxy. Because of its immense mass, Phoenix A acts as a gravitational lens of epic proportions. As it moves toward us, it bends the light of the entire Milky Way. Looking up at the night sky, you would see the band of the Milky Way warp and twist.
The stars would not be where they are supposed to be. The geometry of the heavens would break. It would feel as if the sky were melting. Then, the perturbations. Gravity travels at the speed of light. As the beast approaches, its gravitational field extends like an invisible hand, reaching out across light years. The Oort cloud, the shell of icy debris surrounding our solar system, would be disrupted first. Trillions of comets would be dislodged, sent spiraling inward toward the sun or flung out into the void. A rain of ice and fire would begin to bombard the inner planets, a prelude to the main event. Then, the outer planets. Neptune and Uranus, the sentinels of the deep, would feel the tug. Their orbits, stable for billions of years, would unspool. They would be dragged off course, drifting aimlessly into the dark. Then Saturn, with its majestic rings. The rings would be torn apart, scattered like glitter in a hurricane. Jupiter, the giant, would groan as its gaseous body was stretched into an egg shape. And then, Earth. We are so small. Against Phoenix A, we are subatomic. As the event horizon looms, a wall of blackness that fills half the sky, blocking out the stars, blocking out the galaxies. The terror is absolute. It is the terror of the sublime. You are looking at the face of infinity. You are looking at the end of all things. The oceans would not just tide, they would levitate. The water would be pulled off the surface of the planet in giant floating globules, drawn toward the sky. The atmosphere would be stripped away in seconds, sucked into the vacuum. The silence of space would descend upon the surface. No wind, no sound, just the silent, suffocating grip of the void. And then the fling. Phoenix A moves at the speed of light in our scenario. It swings past. For a brief moment, its gravity supersedes everything. The sun is nothing. The earth is nothing. We are grabbed by the collar and thrown. The entire solar system is dismantled. The sun is ejected from the galaxy. The planets are scattered like seeds in the wind. Earth is flung into the intergalactic void, a rogue rock, dead and frozen, drifting forever in the empty space between galaxies. This is the ultimate fate, not consumption, but isolation, to be cast out into the eternal night, far from the warmth of any star, a monument to the power of the black hole. Phoenix A continues on its way, a silent god wandering the universe, leaving a trail of shattered systems in its wake. It does not care. It does not hate. It simply is. And in its shadow, we realize the truth. We are fragile, temporary guests in a universe that belongs to the monsters. The silence that follows the passage of a god is heavier than the noise of its arrival. Phoenix A has come and gone. The event, in terms of cosmic time, was a mere flicker, a shadow passing over a candle flame. But in that flicker, the candle was extinguished. The solar system, the clockwork mechanism of planets and moons that functioned with precision for 4.5 billion years, has been dismantled. It has been unmade. We are now drifting. Let us linger in this aftermath, For this is where the true horror of the cosmos lies. Not in the violence of the destruction, but in the eternity of the consequences. The Earth has been flung out of the Sun's gravitational embrace. We are a rogue planet now, a wanderer, a piece of shrapnel from a cosmic explosion hurtling through the emptiness at speeds that defy comprehension. Look up. The sky has changed. The sun, once the blazing anchor of our existence, is now just a star. A bright star, yes, but shrinking with every passing hour. It is receding into the distance, a fading ember in the rearview mirror of our world. With it goes the day. There is no more sunrise. There is no more sunset. There is only the eternal, unblinking night of interstellar space. The blue sky, which was just the scattering of sunlight through our atmosphere, is gone. Even if we had kept our atmosphere, which we likely didn't, the sky would be transparent, revealing the cold, hard gaze of the infinite stars. The temperature plummets. It does not happen instantly, but it is relentless. Within days, the surface of the Earth drops below freezing. The water that wasn't stripped away by the black hole's gravity begins to harden. The oceans develop a skin of ice that thickens by the hour. The tropical rainforests, the temperate zones, the deserts, all are equalized under a blanket of frost. The atmosphere, what remains of it, begins to lose its energy. Carbon dioxide freezes out of the air, falling as dry ice snow. Then the nitrogen and oxygen liquefy, raining down upon the frozen oceans, before finally freezing into solid blocks of air. The Earth becomes a white, silent tomb. But what of us? What of the human story? In this scenario, civilization ended the moment the atmosphere was ripped away. The lucky ones died instantly of decompression, their lungs emptying into the void, consciousness fading before the pain could register. The unlucky ones, well, perhaps there were those in deep bunkers, in submarines, or on the International Space Station, though the station would have been torn apart long ago. If anyone survived the initial pass, they are now trapped in a dying metal shell, watching the sensors report the falling temperature, knowing that the batteries will run out, that the air recyclers will fail, and that the cold is patient. This is the existential dread of the rogue planet. It is the ultimate loneliness. We are no longer part of a family of planets. We are no longer bathed in the light of a star. We are alone in the dark, drifting toward nothing. We might drift for billions of years without ever coming close to another star. We are a ghost ship sailing a black ocean with no shore. And what of the destroyer? What of Phoenix A? It continues. It does not look back. To an object of that mass, the disruption of a single solar system is less than a footprint on a beach. It moves through the universe with the inevitability of a glacier. It consumes what it crosses. It flings what it grazes, and it warps the very fabric of reality around it. It is a reminder that the universe is not built for us. We are not the protagonists. We are the mold growing on a rock that happened to be in the warm spot for a brief cosmic summer. And winter has come. But let us pull back. Let us step away from the frozen corpse of the Earth and look at the bigger picture. Why do we tell these stories? Why do we simulate our own destruction with such vivid detail? Why are we obsessed with the black hole, the void, the end? Perhaps it is because the black hole represents the ultimate unknown. It is the edge of the map. In the old days, map makers would draw dragons at the edge of the known world and write, "Here be dragons." Today, our maps cover the entire globe, so we look up. And there, in the center of the galaxies, in the dark spaces between the stars, we find the dragons. They are made of gravity and time. They are the points where our understanding of physics breaks down, where the rules of the game stop applying.
They are the limit of human knowledge. And in facing them, even hypothetically, we confront our own fragility.
We realize that our daily worries, our politics, our economies, our social statuses are laughably small. Against the backdrop of 100 billion solar masses, a stock market crash is meaningless. Against the event horizon of a supermassive black hole, a border dispute is absurd. These cosmic monsters provide a perspective that is terrifying, yes, but also clarifying. They strip away the vanity of the human condition and leave us with the raw truth. We are alive, against all odds, on a tiny, fragile raft. We should be grateful. Grateful for the sun that warms us. Grateful for the Jupiter that shields us. Grateful for the gravity that holds us down but does not crush us. Grateful for the boring, predictable orbit that keeps us in the Goldilocks zone. Because out there, in the deep dark, there are things that would end it all in a heartbeat. There are wandering black holes, rogue stars, and bursts of gamma radiation that could sterilize our world without warning. But they haven't, not yet. We are still here. The simulation ends. The Earth is not frozen. The sun is not receding. The sky is blue. You can take a breath. You can feel the warmth on your skin. But the next time you look up at the night sky, remember what is out there. Remember the invisible ghosts. Remember the coin-sized assassins and the galaxy-sized gods. And remember that in the grand casino of the universe, we have been winning the jackpot every single day for 4 billion years. So, black holes suck. They are the ultimate engines of destruction. Falling into one is a one-way trip to oblivion, a journey where you are stretched, burned, and erased from the book of life. But they are also the architects of the galaxies. Without the supermassive black holes anchoring the centers, the galaxies might not have formed. The stars might not have been born. We might not exist. They are the destroyers, but they are also the creators. Shiva in the sky. That is the duality of the cosmos. Beauty and terror, creation and destruction, life and the void. Now, before you go back to your life, safe on this solid ground, do not forget the shield we spoke of earlier. The digital world has its own black holes, its own invisible threats. Protect yourself. Click the link in the description to get the special discount that CyberGhost VPN is offering our viewers. Secure your data, unlock the world, and stay safe from the prying eyes in the dark.
It's a small step, but unlike stopping a black hole, it's one you can actually take. Stay curious, stay safe, and keep watching the stars, because they are watching us.